Imagine falling deeply in love with someone who seems perfect, charming, wealthy, and from a royal family, only to discover that every single word they told you was a calculated lie designed to drain you and everyone you love of over $300,000. That's exactly what happened to one Nigerian American woman. And today we're diving into this shocking tale of deception, manipulation, and betrayal that will leave you speechless. This story is absolutely wild, and I guarantee you'll want to hear every detail. Welcome to True Crime Family Corner. So before we get started, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because you won't want to miss what happens next. Trust me, this story has more twists and turns than you can imagine. Now let's get into it. Guys, this situation is absolutely insane. A Nigerian American woman is currently making waves across the internet after she bravely revealed to the entire world how her fiancé, a white Danish man, systematically scammed her and her whole family of more than $300,000. Yahoo boys better take notes because this story will teach countless Nigerian women, African women, and women everywhere to be extremely careful about the kind of man they allow into their hearts. Not everything that sparkles is actually gold, and not everyone who appears innocent actually is. So let me introduce you to Onyeka, a 30-something-year-old Nigerian American who built a successful life for herself in Dallas, Texas, United States. And back in June of 2022, she encountered a white man, a seemingly charming and handsome gentleman named Martin Fredsgaard Anderson, while she was enjoying a vacation in Croatia with her best friend Jennifer. The connection was immediate and electric. They talked for hours, laughed together, and walked along the beautiful seaside. It felt like an instant soul connection. According to Onyeka, Martin Fredsgaard appeared calm and incredibly charming, speaking with remarkable confidence that drew her in completely. To her naive heart, she believed she had finally discovered the love of her life. But to him, she represented nothing more than his next financial victim. When they first met and talked about their lives briefly in Croatia, he painted an impressive picture of himself. He explained that he traveled frequently for business and came from an extremely wealthy Danish family. And I believe this detail is what truly made Onyeka fall head over heels because, wow, imagine meeting a rich, tall, white man who claims to be from a royal family connected to Danish lineage. It seemed like a fairy tale come true. And immediately before their vacation ended, they exchanged Instagram information. She returned to the United States, and he supposedly went back to only God knows where. Onyeka had built an impressive career in real estate and technology. She was financially independent and successful, owning her own house and having already paid off all her student loans completely. Martins also claimed he worked in real estate too, which seemed like another perfect match. After the trip concluded and they separated to their different locations, they maintained constant communication every single day. Martins called regularly and sent thoughtful messages frequently. He told elaborate stories about being from a royal family with powerful connections throughout Denmark. He even dropped hints that he had once been a professional athlete and was supposedly an Olympic medalist, insisting that his family maintained links to extremely important people. Onyeka believed every single word he said because he delivered these claims with such overwhelming confidence, genuine care, and natural charisma. She never once thought to simply Google this man or verify whether anything he was telling her was actually true. She saw that he was white, appeared charming, and spoke confidently, and she instantly believed everything without question. Throughout late 2022, they traveled together to glamorous places like Monaco, Cannes, and Saint-Tropez, and at some point Onyeka suffered a head injury while they were in Cannes just one day before she was supposed to return home, and she later reflected that it was probably a warning sign that something wasn't quite right with her relationship with this man. But she completely ignored the signs. Why would she pay any attention to red flags? This man appeared to be a fine, tall glass of perfection from a royal family. So to her misguided perception, she had absolutely hit the jackpot. He was the perfect man in every way. However, to him, this was purely business, a calculated transaction. But she remained completely oblivious. You see, Martins consistently booked expensive hotels and arranged fancy dinners and crafted a lifestyle that appeared classy and wealthy. From an outside perspective, he genuinely looked like a man with substantial money and high social status. And Onika felt incredibly proud to be with him and completely trusted the luxurious life that he displayed before her. It wouldn't take very long before serious problems started emerging and before the obvious cracks in the facade began revealing themselves. It first started innocently, with Martins claiming that his bank accounts were suddenly frozen and that his money was severely delayed because of complicated tax issues and legal checks, explaining that he desperately needed to fix a property he had invested in. He manipulated her psychology and got deep into her head, making her genuinely believe that she was the one practically begging him to accept money from her because she had offered financial help to him in the past numerous times. But he had always refused, because he was constantly acting like he could easily handle everything himself, and he eventually would resolve all his issues until suddenly now he could no longer manage them, because all along this was the carefully planned strategy. He started asking Onika to help him with small emergency costs like hotel bills and flight changes. And at first Onika thought that this was perfectly okay because the amounts he was requesting were very small and completely manageable. And Onika agreed to give him this money because she genuinely cared for him deeply and trusted his sincere promises. If you're still watching, please take a second to hit that subscribe button because this story gets even crazier, and you'll definitely want to be here for all our future true crime content. By early 2023, the financial requests dramatically increased. Martin started asking for thousands and thousands of dollars for things he labeled as urgent, like apartment deposits, travel expenses, or fees to supposedly unlock his frozen accounts. Onika lent him the money, believing wholeheartedly they were building a future together. And each time he made solemn promises to pay her back very soon and used emotionally manipulative words to keep her emotionally close. He gave elaborate excuses about complicated tax situations and accounts being completely frozen. Martin spoke constantly about marriage and building a beautiful life together between Europe and the United States, and he painted vivid pictures of big homes, happy family life, and endless travel. Onika's friends felt things were moving dangerously fast. But Onika believed his love was completely real and agreed to move forward with him despite their concerns. Martin spent considerable time in Dallas, Texas, because he claimed he absolutely did not want to take her away from her family after visiting and seeing how extremely close she was to them. Onika's friends and work partners met him personally and thought they appeared happy together. Photographs showed exotic trips and fine dining experiences. But behind those carefully curated images, Martins kept persistently asking Onika for more money, repeatedly saying that everything will soon be completely settled and he would return all the money to her. Even after they had a simple court marriage, and Martins could not even afford to buy a ring, the financial problems did not stop whatsoever. Martin still insisted his accounts in Europe were completely frozen and that he desperately needed help with legal and personal fees. And Onika continued to support him financially, desperately wanting to protect their marriage and believe in his constant words. She sometimes hid her growing worries because she felt deeply ashamed and terribly confused. After all, everyone around her, including friends and family members, were genuinely envious of her relationship with this fine, white, tall Danish royalty, and she desperately wanted to maintain that impressive image. Over time, Onika started noticing that his actual lifestyle did not match his grand claims, especially when she visited him in Denmark and saw that it was definitely not giving the Denmark prince vibes that he had confidently assured her. Still, she remained surprisingly calm and tried desperately to convince herself that everything would eventually be all right. She also noticed that when he claimed he had absolutely no money, he still traveled extensively and spent money freely. This obvious difference began to raise very strong doubts in her mind. The more she carefully observed, the more she clearly saw that his words and actions were absolutely not adding up properly. At some point, he somehow convinced her to quit her job entirely because he said he was about to sell a major property, and she foolishly agreed. A major turning point arrived when Onika discovered that Martins had a serious gambling problem. She saw clear signs of heavy online betting and large losses. When she confronted him directly, he admitted it and promised to stop immediately. He cried dramatically and said he would change and get professional help. Onika desperately wanted to believe him and tried to support his supposed recovery. The situation became significantly worse when Martin started asking Onika's family and friends for money directly. He told each person a completely different sad story and borrowed money from them as well. Man, this guy is on another level entirely. I mean, it's bad enough that you're already treating this girl so terribly, but the moment you start borrowing money from her friends and family, Lord have mercy, and not even his own friends and family, but the girl's friends and family. And at this point, Onika had witnessed too many red flags already. The fact that she's still remaining in this relationship clearly shows that this was not genuine love, even on her own part. She was too delusional. Before we continue with what happens next, make sure you're subscribed to True Crime Family Corner so you never miss another shocking story like this one. She was Onika girl. You are definitely not the smartest person out there. It was only when these cracks started to seriously show that Onika finally decided to ask herself all these important questions that she absolutely should have asked herself from the very beginning. This man said he was a Danish prince, right? And he said he had an Olympic medal, claiming he used to compete for the Olympics. And she finally went to do her background checking years later and many thousands of dollars later. And that was precisely when she found out that, yeah, this man was absolutely not linked to any royal family from Denmark whatsoever. And neither was he an Olympic medalist. He never competed for any Olympics unless there was a special category for fraud and scam and gambling. When she checked his background more closely and thoroughly, everything that he had confidently told her about himself turned out to be a flat-out lie. Even with all these shocking things that Onika had discovered, even realizing that he was not a Danish prince and that he did not come from a royal family and that he was not wealthy and that his life was a completely fake life, Martin still used emotional manipulation to blind her judgment. According to her account, he used emotions to keep her under control. He cried, begged desperately, and promised to change. He admitted to everything, claiming that he did all this because he loved her. He fell in love with her. He does not want to lose her. And, she fell for this manipulation. And those were the moments that made Onika delay the marriage, hoping that he would genuinely change and promising that she would maybe continue getting married with him if he changed because she believed that he was going to get better despite the fact that her trust was already fading rapidly. To say that Onika pushed him to seek treatment and face his gambling issues seriously. And sometimes he would pretend like he was getting better. He would pretend like he was recovering, but it was just temporary. Before she would know it, he had went back to the same vicious circle of lies, deceit, and again borrowing more money. Somewhere along the line, she took this young man to Nigeria for her grandmother's burial. And around this period of time, Martins's father also fell sick, had surgery, and died during the process. And she also went with him for that burial before returning back to Dallas. You would think at this point, with all this death happening on both sides of the family, she would come down from this ship and move on with her life. But no, my dear, our Nigerian girl said she's going to keep this white man, because for some weird reason, I think she somehow thought there was still hope and thought that maybe somewhere along the line he would genuinely change. And at this point, let's face it, everybody is already envious of her, and nobody knows that this was what she was going through in that relationship. According to the story, they later took many trips together and began planning their wedding while also working out a way to pay Onika's crypto friends whom he owed $200,000. They asked them to forgive $40,000 and accept $160,000 instead. Soon new excuses and emergencies appeared, followed by fresh requests for money, and the pattern repeating itself again and again endlessly. On a particular incident while they were in Dallas, and Onika was the one paying for everything, she asked him for some money and he lied that his Chase bank account had issues. She made him go to the bank. He went in alone and came out with only $1,000 instead of $5,000 as he promised. They eventually went back home, and he tried to gaslight her by saying that she was insulting him, but but she was already seeing the clear red flags, something that she should have seen since day one. She later left the house and spoke to a friend. She eventually took his card and secretly checked his Chase bank account. He had only 34 cents in his bank account, which he claimed he was having issues with. She confronted him, and he said he moved the money. Onika found out the website where Martins has been betting and gambling away thousands of dollars recklessly. Friends who had loaned him money started to speak out. They shared similar stories of pressure, lies, and false promises. Onika gathered messages, bank records, and screenshots. Together, they saw clear proof that this was a long deception, not a single mistake. At some point, it seemed she almost forgave him again. They discussed a proper marriage and possibly a wedding in Nigeria. Onika eventually found out more things about Martins, like the fake house he told her he sold, and almost convinced her to invest $100,000 in, later reducing it to $20,000, which she refused. The house actually belonged to an interior designer in Germany. However, she still hoped truly he owned two other houses. They continued traveling for events while preparing for their wedding and paying off the debt of $160,000 in cryptocurrency debts, while also putting aside money for their wedding with the support of parents. Around this time, Martins's green card got approved. In mid-2025, she caught him gambling again. He tried to convince her that one of his frozen accounts has been released, but he kept sending fake payments for the wedding to her mother. She confronted him about it, and he lied. He tried to make her feel bad and claimed that he wanted the divorce, and it worked because she tried to reason with him. While acting like he was no longer interested in the marriage, he still said he was going to pay her back. At this point, Onika told her family members, and that was when she found out that Martins owed her sister $3,000. Her close friends also told her that Martins owed them money and always claimed that he was going to use it to surprise her. If this story is blowing your mind, please subscribe and share this video because everyone needs to hear this warning. Her cousins, coworkers, and other friends also revealed that they had lent him money. And it was at this point that the whole illusion of love vanished from her eyes. I guess at the initial time, when he was borrowing money from the friends, she wasn't aware until now that she finally got to hear of it. She reached out to Martins's ex, whom she had initially blocked on Instagram. And the ex told her that he had tried to warn her, but could not contact her. The ex had a similar experience with him as he borrowed money from her, her friend, and her family, and eventually stole from her. She also found out that when she met Martins, he was still dating the ex-girlfriend. Onika reached out to Martins's elder sister, who was a police officer, and she said he had a gambling addiction and was always in debt. She had tried to help him and even sent him to China to work, but he only began owing people there again and again. She also told her parents that they already had a court marriage, and her parents told her that Martins had asked them for money too. However, they promised to support her. She reached out to other wealthy relatives and found out that Martins had borrowed nearly $30,000 from a rich family friend. The family said they initially thought she planned the entire scam with Martins because she was Nigerian. The final breaking point was when Onika understood the full scale of the damage. It was not just emotional, but also a heavy financial loss for many people connected with her. She felt hurt, anger, and shame. The betrayal affected her and everyone connected to Martins. Martins also began trying to manipulate her again, but she already saw him for who he was. He tried to approach her, but she screamed and said that she did not want to see him again. In November of 2025, Onika ended the marriage and completed the divorce steps in Dallas, Texas. After that, she went public with a TikTok series called The Danish Deception, shared evidence, and spoke openly about how the deception happened. She said she would not give up until he paid for his crime. Some people, companies, and women reached out to her about Martins. She initially did not mention his name, but people on social media were able to find out who he was. The video she made on TikTok went viral, and people were shocked at how a charming man built a false life and used love to gain trust and money. Many viewers shared similar stories from their own experiences. Thanks for watching this episode of True Crime Family Corner. If you found this story shocking and educational, please subscribe, hit the notification bell, and share this video to warn others about romance scams. Stay safe out there, and remember, always verify before you trust. See you in the next video.